Hello again. In my last video, I invited viewers to join me as I unbox a 5x7 large format film camera I had recently purchased on eBay. Together, we put eyes on the camera and the accessories the seller included. We assessed its condition, putting the camera through all of its movements. I already knew I'd need to make a new ground glass, which is easy enough to make. I might make a future video on that process. We inspected the lens and the Packard shutter. I was glad to see the shutter appeared to be salvageable. The lens was rather dirty, but I was hoping it would clean up nicely. I knew this camera would need a little work when I bought it, but until you receive the camera and go through it, you just really never know exactly how much work it's going to need. Now it's time to get at it and get this camera cleaned up. So the first thing I wanted to do was to check the condition of the lens and the shutter. The shutter is missing the bulb on the end of the rubber hose, but I've ordered one of those. I've got another one, not sure what I did with it, so I had to buy one. But the good thing is that the shutter is free, so if I move it, it does cycle. And if I pull the pin out on the front, it stays open for bulb mode. So I think with just a little bit of cleaning, the shutter will be good. And this hose is surprisingly in good shape, especially since I'm estimating the age of this camera to be maybe close to 90 years. So it's pretty cool that that's good. The lens doesn't really look all that bad. So if I open it up here, I can see that the diaphragm inside opens and closes. So that's good. And I really think all that it needs is cleaning. So able to remove the lens from the flange. Then we can set that part aside. Okay, so that looks pretty good. And then we can remove the front and the rear elements. So the front element comes off. And the rear element, yep, it's spinning off easily, so that's nice. Nothing on this camera yet feels like it's frozen up. And then now you can see the aperture blades. So this lens goes from an f-stop of 4.5 to 22. Most of my large format lenses go to either f-stop of 45 or f64, but my preliminary research on this lens says that it came from a Japanese military camera used for aerial photography. So it's not the kind of lens you would typically see on a large format camera, but the aperture blades, they look clean, they don't look rusted, they move smoothly. So I think we'll be okay with just doing some minor cleaning on the outside of the barrel. But as far as the lens goes, reading everywhere I've read on how to gently clean large format barrel lenses is to disassemble them like this. And I'm not going to assemble the front element any further. It looks like there's at least 2 pieces of glass in there. I'm just going to try it cleaning it, to this level so far. But they state to use 3% hydrogen peroxide mix and soak them for 5 to 10 minutes to kill any fungus that may be on it, and then just to gently wash it with alcohol in a microfiber cloth. So that's what I'm going to do. And we will let that soak for about 5 to 10 minutes. Okay, so it's been about 10 minutes, and I think now I will take these out and see how they look. Change the way the camera is set up a little bit, so hopefully that will help. So we'll take the rear element out first. Just gently dry this off with a microfiber towel. The rear element really wasn't all that dirty, but that actually looks pretty good. I gotta tell you, that looks pretty clear. I'll take just a little rubbing alcohol. And clean the lens with that. We'll reassemble the lens. So that looks pretty good. Let's give the rest of the barrel just a gentle soap and water cleaning, and there's quite a bit of dust back here, but then I think it will be all right. Next step will be cleaning the body of the camera, cleaning the bellows, and checking them to see if they're light tight. Just a quick inspection of the corners of the bellows. I don't really see any pinholes, so I am optimistic about that. Okay, so here we are, day 2 of getting this camera cleaned up. I've given it just a quick look over, and everything looks pretty good, but it is pretty dusty. It almost looks as if it was on display for a while. There's a lot of dust on the top, but the sides aren't too bad, but there's a lot of internal dust. I typically don't have to do this with any of the cameras that I get, but I'm actually going to take the vacuum cleaner and just gently try to clean the inside of it. There's some dust, there's some hair, and then after that I'm just going to use some gentle soap and warm water, sponge it off gently, dry it, and then I'm going to treat it with some carnauba cream. The bellows still seem pretty flexible, pretty pliable, so I don't really think I'll have to deep treat them with a conditioner and have to be too ginger with them. They move actually pretty well. So I think just a gentle cleaning inside and out should get us on our way. Okay, so that looks a lot better. Still a little bit of residual dust in there, but it's nothing like it was. So don't know if you guys will be able to see that, but it's definitely a lot cleaner than what it was. So now take a air pump, see if I can dislodge some of this dust that's down in the creases. Yeah, I think this thing has been on display for quite a bit. We don't want all of that dust getting in our photographs. I have a hard enough time with dust as it is. Don't need any help from any of this. Okay, and then I've got a dry brush here. Go before we put any soapy water on it, we will try to dry this out. Now, I usually don't extend the bellows very far until they've been cleaned and a little bit conditioned. If it's a new to me camera and I don't know the condition of the bellows and I don't know how long they've sat. But these feel pretty flexible, so I feel like it's pretty low risk to extend the bellows out for cleaning. So they're already looking a ton better. Makes me wonder if this camera wasn't displayed more than it was actually used. So let's go ahead and extend these out just a little bit. This is also a good reminder to myself to clean my existing cameras, since I have them sitting out and not typically on this folded up and in storage. I typically always have my cameras on display. So there we go. All right, now all I'm going to do is take a sponge, some warm soapy water. Don't want it completely saturated, just barely damp. Squeeze as much of that out of there as we can. Just give it a nice gentle cleaning. Some people like to take the bellows completely off the bed so that they can get to the bottom, and I may do that. I'm not going to do that today, but because like I said, the in this particular case, it seems like the top is the dirtiest part. The bottom doesn't seem quite as bad, which again leads me to believe that this camera was on display quite a bit. I think I might have said this in the last video, but I did reach out to the seller to see if I could get any history on the camera. I haven't heard anything back yet. Yeah, and like I said, I can see the bottom now. The bottom looks pretty nice. The bottom doesn't look bad at all. When buying an older large format camera, condition of the bellows is always kind of a gamble. But it doesn't mean that the camera is not worth the work. My 5x7 Eastman clinical camera, the bellows were very stiff. They had obvious signs of repair. They even stuck together just a little bit when the bellows are extended. But I did a gentle cleaning on them, and I've been using them just the way they are. And if you want a little bit of extra added insurance against light leaks in the corners, a lot of times I'll just drape my dart cloth over top of the bellows while the exposure is happening. And like I said, it just gives you a little bit of insurance. Now these supports here are a little rusty. There's a little bit of rust on the bellows that is transferred there on that side, but I think it'll be all right. And if the bellows are just absolutely, completely just wasted, there are people that will make bellows for you for just a couple $100. So if that's the difference between saving a camera and not saving a camera. It's a small investment, really, for brand new bellows, because these cameras are great cameras, and especially the ones that are this old, like they're worth saving. So that looks pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and try to get the bottom on what I can reach without taking off the bellows completely off the bed. It's not hard to do, but if you don't have to do it, it's probably better not to. But what you can do is move the front and back standard to the extreme ends of the bed so that the openings on the bottom of the camera give you access to the bellows. On the bottom here, it does look like maybe the bellows weren't closed right at one time and got a crease in them. Again, it can happen a lot, but they're not leaking. It's more an aesthetic than it is anything. Absolutely does not affect the function of the bellows. I am actually really happy with how well these are cleaning up. I think you'll be surprised how good these look compared to what they looked just a minute ago. Quite a bit of dust and dirt came off of this camera. So that side. Maybe wipe this side one more time. The top was the worst, so I'm going to go over the top one more time. You can reach in from the inside and kind of spread the bellows apart a little bit so that you can get the sponge down in there. As for some of these, it's deep down in that crevice of the bellows fold is where it's the worst. Okay, so those are nice. Now while I've got the water out, I am going to just gently go over the body of the camera. I want to get the wood saturated, and I will probably follow it up with some Old English just to kind of polish it. But let's see what we can do about just getting some of the dirt off of this. A lot of times, once you get the dirt off of this, and with just a little bit of polish, you can really make these cameras shine. You can really make them look good. There's quite a bit of dust down in the corners here. And I'm always torn with the hardware on these cameras. So it's got a nice metal patina, you know, just like a nice natural patina to it. Kind of shows a little respect for the age, but it probably wouldn't take much polishing to really make it look nice. But remember, as much dust and grime as you can get off of these cameras, the better, because it really will help make your images look nicer. It's not saying you need a nice camera to take a nice image, but if you don't want dust in your negatives, clean your gear. Makes me wonder how long it's been since this camera's been put through its full range of motions, you know? I've always heard one of the biggest demises of classic cars is to not drive them. And I think the same is true for camera gear. You know, I think they're made to be used, they're made to be handled. And they're usually better off for it. Again, this is just mild soap and water. And I'm not allowing the water to stand on any of the wood parts. It's not going to damage it. We're going to follow it up with a polish anyway, so it will be just fine. But man, if you could see the amount of dust that's on the bottom of that bed right there. All right, let's see if we can move this to the other way. See if I'm able to get a sponge back in there to clean that up. It's a tight place to get into. Because the gap between that rail is and the mechanism for rotating, tilting the back is not very small, or very large. I mean, it's a pretty small opening. We'll see if we can squeeze a microfiber cloth in there. There we go. A little bit of work to get that wiped off. A lot of people see these cameras in antique stores or on auction sites and they just think, oh, they're dusty, the bellows are probably bad, it's probably not worth it. But I'm telling you people, it's worth it. Sometimes when it feels like you've saved a 100-year-old camera and returned it back to useful condition, it's a good feeling. It really is. Just going to clean the inside of the frame here. Go over this again, a little bit more detail at a later time. Right now, I'm just really trying to knock off the big stuff. To get some conditioner on this handle too. I've seen some of the models will actually say Gundlach on the handle. This one does not. I don't know what that means. I don't know if that means it's an earlier model. That means it was a cheaper model. I'm not really sure. Okay, let's tilt this back the other way. The big hinge that's on the side of these really does kind of obscure some of the wood, so when you're cleaning, you gotta tilt sometimes to make sure you get behind everything. But it moves nice. Let's get it returned back to center there and put the lock on. Some of these had like a floating level there on the side that you could use to tell when you were level. This one does not, which again makes me wonder if it's not maybe an earlier model. The inside still has some dust. I don't know if you can see all that dust that's coming out of there. It will likely take me a little bit of going over this again and again to get that dust out. But if we can extend this out a little bit, just like on top of the bellows, there was quite a bit of dust down in the creases. So if I can go in here with this dry brush, maybe loosen some of that up. Yeah, let's hit that. Hit that with the vacuum one more time. I don't know if you can see how much dust is floating around the room here. But let's give it one more hit with the vacuum. Again, clean all the dust off here. Have to vacuum the floor when I'm done. Because who knows what has been in here, what all that dust is, but kind of show you down inside there. That looks a ton better. Let's take a look at the back. I know we'll have to replace the dark slide in this, but the rest of it looks pretty good. The springs still feel relatively tight. All the hardware is there, which is sometimes a blessing, because there are times that for whatever reason, dark glass is gone or the ground glass is gone, hardware is missing, and all the screw holes are stripped out. So this doesn't look quite as bad, but we'll give it a little gentle wash. It's kind of nice too. I haven't found instances of tape. Hate getting an old camera, old large format camera, and finding tape. Tape's not a fix, folks. It really isn't. If you have to use tape, use something temporary. I use painter's tape a lot on my film holders to make notes on for like exposure notes and such. And painter's tape removes, if you remove it, you know, relatively quickly, within a week. Don't let it sit on there for years. It will remove with no residue, and it doesn't block light, but I don't need it to block light. I am strictly using it to take notes on. So I'm going to gently kind of pull this back and see if I can clean down inside there. This thing I want to do is put a film holder in there and have it push all the dust from in here down on the front of my film holder, and then when I remove the dark slide, get that same dust on my film. Make all the effort to keep the dust off of your film while you're loading your film holders, and then put it into a camera that's packed with dust. It really does kind of defeat the purpose a little bit. So but you could spend 10-15 minutes wiping down your camera every so often, and it will reward you for it. Okay, maybe we'll make a dark slide today. Yeah, I don't know if you can see this, but just all of this dust is crazy. Makes me Makes me feel like I need to follow my own advice and dust my cameras today. Something else that's kind of cool is you can sometimes look at this and tell if the bellows have ever been replaced or not, but you can see some of the little tack nails. There are just a couple of screws, maybe 2 on the bottom, 2 on the top. But these bellows do look like the original bellows. So for these bellows to be, I'm estimating this to be a late 20s, early 30s camera. So for these bellows to be about 100 years old, that's pretty amazing. It's pretty incredible that they're in as good a shape as they're in. So I think we got all the dust out of the crevices. And these have dried up nicely. So the last thing I'm going to do is to take some carnauba cream. I do a little bit of leather work as a hobby. Isn't that the case with most of us photographers, especially film photographers? We have too many hobbies, or more hobbies than we have time for. I guess you can never have too many, but more than we have time for. But the same brush, kind of make sure it's clean. I'm just gonna take the tips of this, just gently work some of this cream into the bellows. And this will help condition the bellows and preserve them, protect them, soften them. Not putting a lot on. And in fact, anything that's excess afterward, I'm going to wipe off. But this will help make the bellows flexible, protect them. Because you know what? They're close to 100 years old, if not over. They deserve it. And they will last at least my lifetime. And hopefully get into another photographer's hands when I'm dust. Then we will, of course, stretch the bellows out and let them dry. We don't want to collapse them back on themselves while they're wet. We want them to be fully dry before they collapse. I think we're almost be able to get that rust mark from that rivet off of there, which is nice. Yeah, we were able to clean that right off. I don't know if you can hear that out there, but it's pretty windy here today. This is March 15th, yeah. And there were some pretty serious storms, I think, supposed to come through. Big temperature fluctuation too. I think it's going to be 73 Fahrenheit today for a high. 20-mile-an-hour winds, which sounds like it's at least that out there right now. And then tomorrow night, I think it's supposed to be a low of 16. It's almost a 60-degree temperature swing. That's how you know you're in Ohio. I always say, if you don't like the weather in Ohio, wait 5 minutes and it will change. feel like I got this camera for a steal. This is a really nice 5x7. And this is probably a topic for a future video, but I don't feel like 5x7s get the love they deserve. I think people either go 4x5 or they go 8x10. And a lot of people overlook 5x7s. And 5x7s are a really nice size, especially if you're doing wet plate work or if you're doing contact prints. It's just a really nice size for that. If you do a 5x7 contact print on 8x10 paper, it gives you this just natural border. And just looks really nice. So I think, my opinion, if I was only buying one large format camera, which we've already covered is not the case, but if I were to buy one large format camera, or if someone asked me, hey, I want to get into large format, I only want to have one camera, I don't want to have multiple sizes, what should I get? I would recommend 5x7. I would. And if I was doing it all over again, that's probably all I would buy. Because I'm telling you, when you pack it up into a camera bag or a backpack, it really doesn't take up that much more space than a 4x5. And if you're only going to have one camera, that's what I would do. All right, so while I've got this out, I'm going to put a little bit here on this strap. Okay, so what do you think? I don't know if you can really see it. Can you tell the difference? I can tell the difference. It looks really nice. All right, you know what? I can't help myself. Let's take a little bit of Old English to it and see how it looks. Because I imagine the wood is going to soak this Old English up, just like the leather soaked up that leather conditioner. Yeah, I kind of toyed with the idea of refinishing this wood, but I'm going to leave it. I'm going to leave it to finish it on. It's on it. Looks really nice. It's starting to get some gloss coming back to it. I'm going to leave it just like it is. The other thing I'm really happy about with this camera is that the Packard shutter appears to work. And I don't know what I did with the extra bulbs I had, but I had to order another one. And you can still get a lot of those supplies from the Packard Shutter Company. You can email them. I think it's the Packard Shutter Company at gmail.com. But any of the fittings, the bulbs, any of that kind of stuff, you can still get. So the finish on this part of the body is the worst I think, anywhere on the camera. Just right up here on top. Looks like maybe it got wet or there's just a little bit of water damage. It's nothing too extreme. Nothing too bad. Even the Old English provides just enough lubricant that it makes the standards travel back and forth easier. It's not much, but it's just a little bit. Something I didn't notice is it looks like this front standard is maybe just a little crooked. So we can wind it down here to the end. We can wind it off. Looks like maybe it got put back on just slightly crooked. You know what we'll have to do is we'll have to take it apart at the extension, because they have a pin here at the end to prevent you from accidentally winding it off the end. So if we wind this rear standard all the way back, loosen. This rear standard. Yeah, and you can kind of see here it looks like it's off maybe one tooth. So let's remove this standard. See if we can wind this off. Get it lined back up. Yeah, it's just that easy. And now it's aligned correctly. Tighten that standard up. And yep, it travels a ton better. Yeah, I gotta tell you folks, I'm just really happy with how clean this camera came out. And one last step is let's provide some of this Old English to the ground glass holder. Then the only thing from stopping us from taking an image with this camera is making a ground glass for it. I don't know. I almost feel like we should make a ground glass today. What do you think? Yeah, look at that. Yep, I am really happy with how this turned out. Folks, I think that's it. Let's see. Extend these bellows out a little bit. Give them one last wipe down. I can put our lens back in. Now, after I cleaned the lens last night, I did end up removing the front element just to take it completely apart. Clean it out and let it dry. But I think that's it. Took us what, maybe an hour of work to clean the camera. And if this baby had a ground glass, we'd be shooting some film. So what do you say I go make a ground glass and we see what we can do? All right, thanks for joining me. Stay tuned for photos. All right, everybody, if you're still with me, I want to thank you for coming along on this adventure. This originally was going to be a multi-video project, but the camera was in much better shape than I thought it was. So it ended up going pretty quickly and pretty smoothly. But I hope I've demonstrated what you can do with a large format camera with just a little bit of everyday cleaning supplies, a little bit of know-how, and a little bit of elbow grease. But you can quickly get one of these cameras that's been either on display or in storage for years back to shooting condition. So the next step is for me to make a ground glass for this, which I probably will not film. I might do a video just on making a ground glass in the future, but I'm super excited to get one made for this camera and to get some film through it. So the next video will probably be shooting this camera. By then, I should have the bulb for the Packard shutter. If not, I'll just leave the shutter open and do the lens cap method and take some timed exposures with it. But super excited to see what this lens can do and see if I can find out any other information on this lens. If you have any information on the Zuiko Japanese military use of this lens for aerial photography around pre-war time, I think is what I'm hearing. I would love to hear any information you might have on it. But until next time, happy shooting.